Most people think that discipline is about being tough or having the crazy ability to suffer more than everybody else. But that's not discipline. In fact, that's just unnecessary hardship, and it's a road that often leads to burnout rather than growth. True discipline, according to Stoic philosophy, is not about willpower or pushing through pain. It's about making the right choices so automatic that it almost feels effortless. It's about designing your life in such a way that doing the hard thing becomes easier than giving in to temptation. When you think about discipline this way, you realize that it's not some magical trait you're born with, but rather a skill you can develop, just like any other. Imagine waking up every day and effortlessly making choices that align with your goals. No more battling against yourself. No more feeling guilty for not staying on track. This is the power of discipline when you learn to master it. If that resonates with you, if you're ready to stop making excuses and start making real, consistent progress, then you're in the right place. And if you want to dive deeper into these ideas and apply them to your life, please subscribe. By subscribing, you're taking the first step in transforming your habits, your mindset, and your future. Let's get into it. Strategy 1. Reframe discipline as a system, not a trait. Discipline is often misunderstood, and the reason we struggle with it is that we approach it from the wrong angle. Too many people believe that discipline is something you either have or you don't, as if it's a personality trait you're born with. But that's not discipline. It's a misconception that often holds us back from achieving our goals. You've probably been there before, making promises to yourself to be more disciplined, only to fall back into old habits and excuses when things get tough. This battle between intention and action can leave you feeling like you're failing at something that should be second nature. But here's the truth. Discipline isn't about willpower or forcing yourself to suffer. It's about creating systems that make the right choices easier than the wrong ones. It's about setting up your life in such a way that success feels almost inevitable and failure becomes harder to choose. The Stoics had a very different perspective on discipline, one that challenges how we've been taught to think about it. For them, discipline wasn't something you had to wrestle with every day. It was something that came from within when you lived with intention and design. They saw it not as a trait, but as a system that works with your nature rather than against it. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the foundation of Stoic discipline. It's not about the external circumstances or forcing yourself to adhere to some impossible standard. It's about controlling what you can, your environment, your habits, your thoughts, and using those tools to make success the path of least resistance. Discipline becomes about creating a life that aligns with your values and goals, so that doing the right thing feels almost automatic. So, how do you create this kind of system? Well, it starts by looking at your environment. Most people think of discipline as something you fight for every day, but real discipline is about setting yourself up to succeed. Think about it. How many times have you set a goal, whether it's eating healthier, working out, or being more productive, and then found yourself back where you started, falling into old habits? This happens because we don't design our environment to support the changes we want to make. We don't set ourselves up for success, and instead, we rely on sheer willpower to carry us through. But willpower is a finite resource. It runs out over time, especially when we're constantly battling temptation or trying to change too much at once. If you don't make it easy to make the right choices, you're setting yourself up for failure. This is where the Stoic approach comes in. Discipline, according to Stoic wisdom, isn't about pushing through discomfort or fighting against yourself. It's about creating an environment that works with you. It's about making success inevitable by designing systems that lead you toward your goals without you even having to think about it. For example, if you want to eat healthier, don't just rely on your willpower to avoid junk food. Take the junk food out of your house entirely. This might seem simple, but the impact is powerful. When junk food is no longer an option, you don't have to fight the urge to eat it. It's not even there to tempt you. You're making it easier for yourself to succeed. Want to work out more regularly? Set out your gym clothes the night before, or schedule your workouts like you would a meeting or appointment. If you've already taken the time to plan ahead, it's easier to stick to your plan when the moment comes. The less friction you have to overcome, the easier discipline becomes. We often think that discipline means enduring discomfort, pushing ourselves harder, and showing more grit. But the Stoics knew that real discipline was not about constantly fighting against temptation or doing things the hard way. It's about creating an environment where doing the right thing is the easiest option. Epictetus teaches us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is the essence of Stoic discipline. We can't always control what happens around us, but we can control how we respond. And if we set up our environment to support the right responses, we don't have to fight our impulses. We can align our behavior with our long-term goals naturally. Let's take a look at a simple example. Imagine you've decided to wake up earlier in the morning to be more productive. If your phone is next to your bed, tempting you to scroll through social media, the moment you wake up becomes a struggle. But if you move your phone to a different room or leave it out of reach, you've made the right choice easier to make. No willpower required. You've set yourself up for success. Discipline is no longer about fighting the urge to check your phone. It's about designing your morning routine so that your focus stays where it should be. The less friction you have, the easier it is to stay on track. Discipline doesn't have to be hard. It's about removing obstacles and creating systems that align with your values. But it doesn't end with just creating systems in your environment. The next step is to recognize that discipline also comes from your mindset. How many times have you told yourself you're not disciplined or that you lack willpower? These kinds of negative thoughts can be incredibly damaging because they reinforce the belief that discipline is something you either have or you don't. But this is a myth. Discipline is a practice, and like any practice, it gets easier with time. Just as a musician doesn't expect to play an instrument perfectly the first time, you can't expect discipline to come naturally overnight. Instead, it's about recognizing that discipline is a skill you can develop. It's about shifting your mindset from one of limitation to one of possibility. You don't need to have endless willpower to succeed. You just need to set up your life so that success is the default option. To reinforce this idea, think of the power of routine. Routines are a form of discipline that doesn't rely on willpower. Think about it. The more routines you have in place, the less mental energy you waste trying to make decisions. Want to get up earlier? Don't rely on motivation to pull yourself out of bed. Instead, create a morning routine that leaves you feeling energized and ready to take on the day. You don't have to think about it. It's already part of your system. Discipline becomes automatic because it's built into your life. And once you start to see the results of your efforts, whether it's a healthier body, more productive workdays, or better habits, you'll find that discipline becomes less of a battle and more of a natural way of living. It's important to remember that discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about creating systems that support the life you want to live. And when you design your environment to make success the easiest option, you don't have to rely on willpower to stay on track. You're aligning your actions with your goals, and discipline becomes a natural outcome of that alignment. So, What changes can you make today to start designing your life for success? What friction points in your environment can you eliminate to make discipline easier? Instead of relying on your willpower, start creating systems that work for you. Make the right choices easier and watch how discipline becomes a natural part of your life. Strategy 2. Eliminate the temptation, don't fight it. Discipline isn't about constantly fighting with yourself. It's not about pushing through every urge, every craving, or every distraction. In fact, that's where many of us go wrong. We believe that discipline is all about willpower. We think we need to have enough willpower to overcome every temptation, every urge that pulls us off course. But here's the problem. Willpower is finite. It's like a battery that drains over the course of the day. The more you use it, the less you have left. And if you rely on willpower alone to get through every moment of temptation, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's just not sustainable. Think about it. When you wake up, you're full of energy, motivation, and determination. But by the end of the day, that same energy is depleted. Your willpower isn't as strong, and that's when you're more likely to give in. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This isn't just about controlling your actions, it's about mastering your environment, and by doing so, making the right choices easier. Instead of battling against your impulses, the Stoic approach suggests a far more effective strategy. Eliminate the temptation altogether. Don't set yourself up for failure by constantly putting yourself in situations where you have to resist. It's like trying to quit smoking while sitting in a room full of people smoking. Everywhere you turn, the temptation is right in front of you. Eventually, the struggle becomes overwhelming. So why do we continue to surround ourselves with temptation when we know it's draining our willpower? If you want to eat healthier, don't just hope you'll be strong enough to resist the chips in your pantry. Take the chips out of the house completely. The same goes for any other goal. If you want to be more productive, don't rely on your willpower to resist checking your phone. Put it out of sight, turn off notifications, or even leave it in another room. Make the decision for yourself before temptation even has a chance to arise. By removing the temptation, you've already won half the battle. The environment you live in plays a massive role in shaping your actions. This doesn't mean you're weak or lacking in willpower. It means you're being smart. It's like setting yourself up for success, so you don't have to fight every battle yourself. The Stoics often spoke about the importance of controlling what you can control and accepting what you cannot. And one thing you can control is your environment. When you design your environment to support your goals, the need for willpower diminishes. It's not that you're avoiding discipline, rather, you're making the right choice easier than the wrong one. It's about setting up a system where success becomes the natural option. The more you take the temptation out of your life, the less you have to fight. Think about the times you've succeeded in the past. Were you constantly fighting against temptation, or did you have systems in place that made it easy for you to stay on track? When we try to force ourselves to make difficult choices in the heat of the moment, it's a lot harder to stay disciplined. The battle becomes mentally exhausting, but when we remove the temptation beforehand, the battle is half won. It's not about denying yourself the things you want. It's about creating a life where those things aren't constantly in your face. If you want to get fit, don't just tell yourself, "I'll work out today." Make it easier by preparing your workout clothes and equipment ahead of time. Have your meals prepped so you don't have to make a last-minute decision about what to eat. When you take the guesswork out, it's easier to follow through. We all know how hard it is to resist the things we want, especially when they're right in front of us. This is why the Stoics believed in training our minds and our environments to work together. They understood that true discipline wasn't about fighting every temptation, but rather about aligning our actions with our long-term goals in a way that didn't require constant struggle. By eliminating the distractions and temptations, you make it easier to stay focused on what truly matters. It's about setting yourself up for success, not through sheer willpower, but through smart, intentional design. This idea of making success the path of least resistance is key. When you remove the temptation, you don't have to rely on willpower. Instead, you create a situation where making the right decision is almost automatic. You don't need to summon strength or determination to resist. It's already taken care of. This is the beauty of eliminating the temptation in the first place. You're not fighting against your nature. You're working with it. By setting up your environment in such a way that the right choices are the easiest, you create an environment that fosters discipline naturally. You don't need to force yourself to be disciplined. It becomes a natural outcome of the environment you've created. To bring this into focus, let's take the example of working on a goal. If you're working on a project and your desk is cluttered with distractions, it's easy to get sidetracked. But if you clear your desk and set up a clean, organized workspace, you've made it easier to focus on the task at hand. By removing distractions, you've removed the temptation to procrastinate. This is true for anything. If you want to be more disciplined in your study habits, don't just rely on willpower to stay focused in a noisy environment. Find a quiet place to work or use noise-canceling headphones. When you design your environment to align with your goals, you take away the obstacles that would normally derail your progress. The truth is, discipline doesn't have to be a battle. It doesn't have to feel like a fight you're constantly losing. Instead, it can be a seamless part of your life. By eliminating the temptation and removing the friction, you create a system where discipline comes naturally. You're not fighting against your desires or impulses. You're making it easy to follow through on your commitments. That's what the Stoics understood. They didn't focus on making themselves stronger by constantly fighting temptation. They focused on designing a life where the right choices became the easiest choices. So, next time you feel tempted to rely on your willpower to push through, ask yourself, is there a way to remove the temptation entirely? What can I change in my environment to make success the obvious choice? When you start eliminating the things that pull you off course, you'll find that discipline becomes effortless. You won't need to fight yourself every day. Success will become your default mode. And that's when real discipline starts to take hold. This is the power of setting yourself up for success. You don't need more willpower. You just need to remove the temptation, let go of the constant fight, and let your environment do the heavy lifting. When you design your life with intention, you'll find that staying disciplined is far easier than you ever thought possible. And this is how you create lasting change, by making it easier to be disciplined than to give in. The path to success isn't about fighting against yourself. It's about making the right choices so natural that you don't even have to think about them. Strategy 3. Start small and build momentum. Discipline often gets a bad rap, doesn't it? We think it's something that requires constant struggle, sacrifice, and pushing ourselves to the breaking point. But what if I told you that discipline doesn't have to feel like torture? What if I told you that instead of trying to overhaul your life in one huge leap, the key to lasting change is starting small? That's right. Progress isn't about going big from the start. It's about stacking small wins, one after another. In fact, if you try to change everything at once, you're more likely to burn out before you see any real results. The path to true discipline isn't about extreme measures. It's about setting yourself up for success with small, manageable steps. You'll be surprised at how quickly these small wins add up and build momentum. And once you've built that momentum, the bigger goals will seem easier to tackle. You've probably been there, starting a new goal, whether it's getting fit, reading more, or being more productive, and you dive in with full force. You tell yourself you're going to work out every day, read 5 books in a month, or start waking up at 5 a.m. But after a few days, the enthusiasm fades. The big changes you tried to make all at once feel overwhelming. You're physically exhausted, mentally drained, and now the goal that once excited you feels like a burden. This is the trap most of us fall into. We try to go from 0 to 100 without giving ourselves time to adjust. But here's the thing. Small, incremental steps are more effective than giant leaps. If you try to change everything at once, you'll quickly burn out. But when you take small, consistent actions, you build the foundation for sustainable progress. That's where the real power lies. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." It's true, growth and transformation come from challenges. But these trials don't need to be overwhelming. You don't have to go from 0 to perfection right away. Instead, focus on the small trials, the small victories that gradually lead you toward your bigger goals. Want to exercise more? Don't commit to an hour at the gym every day right from the start. Begin by walking just 10 minutes a day. That's it. Start small and build momentum. Want to read more? Start with reading just 1 page. It doesn't sound like much, but that 1 page is a small win. The more you do this, the more momentum you gain, and before you know it, you'll be tackling bigger goals without the strain or burnout that comes from doing too much too quickly. Building momentum is key, and momentum doesn't come from a single big effort. It comes from doing something consistently, day after day, even if it's small. Let's take fitness as an example again. If you start with that 10-minute walk every day, you'll soon find that you're not just walking for 10 minutes. You're walking for 15, then 20, then maybe even running a few days a week. The point is that each small win builds on the next, and before you know it, you'll be hitting goals that once seemed impossible. The beauty of small wins is that they don't overwhelm you. They don't require you to make huge sacrifices, but they build a steady, sustainable foundation for bigger changes. And each time you reach a small goal, you feel a sense of accomplishment, which fuels your desire to keep going. It's the snowball effect of success. You see, discipline isn't about punishing yourself or pushing through extreme discomfort. It's about making steady, manageable progress that builds over time. The more consistent you are with your small wins, the more momentum you gain. And as that momentum builds, the bigger challenges that once seemed intimidating become easier to tackle. The key here is to start small and celebrate each step along the way. When you achieve small goals, you reinforce the belief that you can achieve even bigger ones. Your confidence grows, and so does your capacity for discipline. Over time, the discipline that once felt like a struggle becomes second nature. It's not about forcing yourself through something hard. It's about slowly and steadily becoming the person who naturally takes the right actions. Now, think about a goal that you've been struggling with. Maybe it's something you've tried to do in the past, but failed at because it felt too overwhelming. How can you break that goal down into smaller, more manageable steps? For example, if you've struggled with reading, instead of saying, "I'm going to read 30 pages a day," start by reading just 1 page. 1 page might seem insignificant, but it's the act of doing something every day that builds discipline. You don't need to go from 0 to hero. You just need to show up. That's how you build consistency. And consistency is the bedrock of true discipline. Once you've made reading 1 page a habit, then you can increase it to 2 pages, then 3, and so on. but it starts with one. Start with what feels doable and build from there. You don't have to feel overwhelmed by the enormity of your goals. Start with the smallest, most manageable piece. And remember, each small step is part of a larger process of growth. As you continue to take these small actions, they'll become second nature, and that's when real discipline begins to take root. It's not about the huge breakthroughs, it's about those consistent, everyday actions that build over time. When you look back, you'll realize that it wasn't the big changes that got you to your goals. It was the small steps, the little victories that led to long-term success. The key to building lasting discipline is to take the pressure off. Stop trying to be perfect. The journey doesn't need to be painful. By taking small, intentional actions every day, you start to build a life that reflects your goals without the constant struggle. Every step you take, no matter how small, brings you closer to who you want to be. And the more you embrace this approach, the more progress you'll make. Discipline becomes less about fighting against yourself and more about consistently showing up day after day. So here's the question: what small action can you take today to start building momentum toward your goals? What's one small step that you can make a habit? Don't think about the whole mountain you need to climb. Just focus on the first step. It might be as simple as setting your alarm 5 minutes earlier, or reading one page before bed. These tiny, manageable actions will build the momentum you need to tackle bigger challenges. And soon enough, the big goals that once seemed overwhelming will feel like a natural part of your routine. Discipline doesn't have to be painful or overwhelming. It's about small, consistent steps that build over time. It's about showing up for yourself every day, even in the smallest ways. When you do this, you'll find that discipline becomes a natural part of who you are, and success becomes the inevitable outcome. So, start small, build momentum, and watch how those little wins turn into big achievements. Strategy 4. Set systems to replace bad habits. The real secret to building lasting discipline isn't about fighting against your bad habits. It's about replacing them with better ones. It's easy to think that discipline means resisting temptation, battling against your own desires, and forcing yourself to make tough choices every day. But the truth is, the more you fight against yourself, the harder it becomes. You end up using up your willpower, only to find yourself back at square one, dealing with the same temptations and bad habits over and over again. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't focus on fighting their impulses. Instead, they focused on choosing better actions. They didn't ask themselves, how can I stop doing this thing I don't want to do? They asked, what can I do instead? This shift in mindset is where the real power of discipline lies. Rather than constantly battling with yourself, you begin to redirect your energy towards something that serves you. This idea isn't about denying yourself pleasure or pushing through constant discomfort. It's about creating a life where the things that are good for you become the things you do naturally. Instead of just saying no to unhealthy food or bad habits, ask yourself, what can I do instead? Instead of watching TV late at night, why not replace that time with reading, journaling, or meditating? Instead of reaching for junk food when you're hungry, grab a healthy snack. The focus here isn't on fighting yourself, but on giving yourself better alternatives that align with your goals. Every time you replace a bad habit with a good one, you're setting up a system that makes it easier to stay disciplined. Over time, these better choices will start to feel like second nature. You won't need to force yourself to be disciplined because you've already built a routine that naturally supports your goals. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This is a powerful reminder that we are not defined by our past habits or impulses. We have the power to choose who we become, and that includes the habits we form. The Stoics believed that we could take control of our actions, not by fighting against our desires, but by consciously choosing the right actions in each moment. This approach doesn't create internal conflict. Instead, it fosters a sense of freedom because we're not constantly fighting against what we don't want to do. We're redirecting our energy into what we do want to do, and as a result, discipline becomes easier, more natural and sustainable. Now think about it. What's one bad habit you've been struggling with? Maybe it's late-night snacking, procrastination, or binge-watching TV. Whatever it is, the goal isn't to beat yourself up or feel guilty about it. The goal is to shift your focus and ask, what can I replace this with? If you want to stop snacking late at night, try replacing it with a calming ritual like drinking herbal tea or reading a chapter of a book. If you want to stop procrastinating, replace the feeling of being overwhelmed with the action of starting small. Break the task into tiny, manageable steps. By choosing a positive alternative instead of simply saying no to a bad habit, you make it easier to stay on track. You're redirecting your energy into something that aligns with your values and supports your long-term goals. It's important to recognize that replacing bad habits doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, and it takes time to shift your focus. But the key is to start small and to build on each success. For example, instead of committing to a strict workout routine that you might not be ready for, start by walking every day. Once that becomes a habit, add in small exercises like stretching or bodyweight squats. The key here is to focus on progress, not perfection. When you make the small changes, they'll add up, and eventually you'll find that the things you once struggled with are no longer a challenge. The discipline you once had to force yourself to maintain will become ingrained in your daily life. The beauty of this approach is that it removes the need for constant resistance. You don't have to struggle to make the right decisions because you've already set up your environment and your habits to support you. It's about making the right choices easier and the bad choices harder. If you're trying to stop eating junk food, it's much easier to not even have it in the house in the first place. The fewer decisions you have to make about what to do, the easier it becomes to stay disciplined. It's about removing the friction that makes discipline feel like a struggle. If you can replace bad habits with good ones, you'll find that discipline feels like an effortless part of your routine. Another important point is that the process of replacing bad habits isn't just about external actions. It's also about your mindset. It's about changing the way you think about discipline. If you constantly tell yourself that you're fighting against your desires, you'll always feel like you're losing. But if you focus on choosing better actions and giving yourself positive alternatives, you'll feel like you're gaining something instead of losing. This shift in mindset is key to building lasting discipline. Instead of feeling like discipline is a constant battle, you'll begin to see it as a way of aligning your actions with your higher values. You're not denying yourself anything. You're choosing what serves you and your goals. This approach also brings a sense of freedom. You're not trapped in a cycle of guilt and resistance. Instead, you're consciously choosing behaviors that reflect who you want to be. Every time you replace a bad habit with a good one, you're reinforcing your commitment to personal growth. It's not about being perfect. It's about taking small, deliberate steps toward becoming the person you want to be. And as you continue to replace bad habits with good ones, you'll find that discipline becomes a natural part of your life. It won't feel forced or like a struggle. Instead, it will be something that flows effortlessly from the systems you've put in place. The key takeaway here is that true discipline isn't about fighting yourself. It's about replacing bad habits with better ones. When you focus on creating positive alternatives, you make it easier to stick to your goals. It's about setting up systems that support your success, rather than relying on sheer willpower. So, The next time you're faced with a bad habit or temptation, instead of saying no, ask yourself, what can I do instead? By choosing a positive alternative, you're making it easier to stay disciplined, and over time, these small wins will add up to big results. Discipline won't feel like a struggle anymore. It will become an effortless part of your life. And that's when real, lasting change happens. Strategy 5. Make discipline easier than laziness. If you've ever found yourself stuck in a cycle of laziness, procrastination, or avoiding your goals, you're not alone. We've all been there at some point, and it's easy to blame ourselves for not having enough willpower or self-control. But what if I told you that laziness is often a result of the environment you've created for yourself? The truth is, laziness doesn't just happen, it's something we inadvertently encourage. We make it easier to be lazy and harder to be disciplined. If you want to break this cycle, you have to flip the script. Instead of focusing all your energy on fighting laziness, why not make discipline the path of least resistance? Make it easier to be disciplined than to be lazy. That's where the Stoic mindset can help us. The Stoics understood that life isn't about pushing ourselves through constant pain and struggle. They didn't glorify hardship for the sake of hardship. Instead, they focused on aligning their actions with their true values, even when it was difficult. As Marcus Aurelius wisely put it, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that instead of focusing on the things that are standing in your way, you should focus on making the right choices, the easiest ones. Discipline doesn't have to be hard if you remove the barriers to good habits and set up systems that naturally lead to success. The key is to make laziness harder than being disciplined. But how do you do that? It starts with a small shift in your thinking. Instead of making it easy to be lazy, make it hard. Instead of setting up your day so that distractions come easily, set up systems that make good habits the simplest path. For example, if you want to eat healthier, don't rely on your willpower to resist unhealthy food. Make the healthy options the easiest choice. Put fruit on the counter so it's the first thing you see when you're hungry. Hide the candy so you have to go out of your way to get it. If you want to exercise more, schedule your workouts like they're important meetings that you can't skip. Block out time for them, make them non-negotiable, and treat them as priorities. The less you have to think about discipline, the more you'll follow through on it. When the path to good habits is clear and effortless, you'll find that discipline comes naturally. Let's think about the habits you're trying to build, whether it's eating healthier, exercising, reading, or being more productive. How many times have you set an intention to be disciplined only to fall short because it felt like too much effort to get started? This happens because we've designed our environments in ways that make laziness easier. If you want to stop procrastinating on work, for instance, remove all distractions before you begin. Turn off your phone, clear your desk, and set a timer for a focused period of work. Don't let yourself get sidetracked by notifications or social media. When you make the decision to work and eliminate all the distractions, it becomes much easier to stay disciplined. You don't have to rely on motivation or willpower. You've set yourself up to succeed. The more you make discipline the obvious choice, the less you'll struggle with distractions. The Stoics didn't focus on resisting what they didn't want. They focused on creating habits and routines that aligned with their long-term goals. The more they cultivated good habits, the easier it was to stay disciplined. Instead of constantly fighting against their weaknesses, they built systems that worked with their nature. This is exactly what you can do in your own life. Instead of focusing on trying to force yourself to resist temptation, focus on making the right decisions so easy that they require almost no effort. When you make healthy choices, the easiest ones, discipline becomes effortless. For example, If you're trying to stop snacking on junk food, don't rely on your willpower to resist it every time you walk into the kitchen. Instead, remove the temptation entirely. Put healthy snacks in easy-to-reach places and keep the junk food out of sight. Make it harder to eat poorly and make it easier to choose healthier options. When healthy choices are the path of least resistance, you'll find that staying disciplined doesn't feel like a battle. The key to discipline is consistency, and consistency is built by making it easier to stick to your goals. The more you make good habits easier to follow through on, the more likely you are to stay disciplined in the long run. It's not about forcing yourself to be disciplined, it's about setting yourself up for success. Think of your environment as a tool you can use to help you stay on track. If you want to be more productive, create an environment that supports your work habits. If you want to improve your health, create a space that encourages healthy choices. The more you set up systems that make the right choices easy, the less effort you'll need to exert to stay disciplined. Over time, these habits will become ingrained in your daily routine, and discipline will no longer feel like something you have to force. It will become part of who you are. It's also important to remember that discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. You don't need to be perfect every time you make a decision. The key is to keep moving forward, even if the steps are small. When you make discipline easier, it's easier to stay consistent, and consistency is what leads to long-term success. Don't expect yourself to be perfect right away, and don't beat yourself up when you make mistakes. Instead, focus on the systems you've set up and how you can continue to improve. When you make discipline the easy choice, you'll start to see progress without the constant struggle. It's about making progress, not perfection. And once you start making progress, you'll be motivated to keep going because you'll see how much easier it is to stay disciplined. The key is not to make discipline a struggle, but to make it the natural path. As the Stoics would say, the impediment to action advances action. By removing the obstacles that make laziness easier, and by designing your life so that discipline feels like the simplest choice, you can achieve lasting change. By making discipline easier than laziness, you're not only improving your habits, you're improving your life. And when discipline becomes second nature, you'll look back and realize that the small changes you made were the key to lasting transformation. So ask yourself, what can I change today to make discipline easier than laziness? What can I do to set myself up for success so that being disciplined feels effortless? Whether it's putting healthier food in easy-to-reach places, scheduling your workouts like meetings, or removing distractions when you need to focus, the more you make discipline the path of least resistance, the easier it will be to stick to your goals. When you make the right choices easier, discipline becomes a natural part of your life, and the effort you once put into resisting temptation fades away. Instead of fighting your weaknesses, you'll have built an environment that works in your favor. And that's where the true power of discipline lies. When you make it easier to choose discipline than to be lazy, you set yourself up for long-term success without even thinking about it. Strategy 6. Consistency is the key to mastery. When we talk about discipline, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that it's all about doing things perfectly. We think that every action has to be flawless, that if we don't achieve something with absolute precision, we've failed. But here's the truth. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. Consistency is the bridge that connects intention to action. It's the difference between the person who makes steady progress and the one who starts strong but burns out quickly. The real key to mastery, to creating lasting discipline in your life, is showing up every single day, even when it feels hard, boring, or unexciting. The Stoics in particular understood this well. They didn't idolize perfection. They valued steady, consistent improvement. As Seneca wisely said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." This is a crucial insight. Time isn't the problem. It's our inability to use it consistently. If we want to be disciplined, we must focus on consistency, not perfection. This might sound simple, but when we look deeper, we see how often we've sabotaged ourselves by expecting too much too soon. We set lofty goals with the idea that we'll be perfect, that we'll suddenly have the motivation to achieve everything. But life isn't like that. Motivation comes and goes. Perfection is impossible. What truly matters is showing up, even when you don't feel like it, even when the results aren't immediate, even when the progress is slow. The small, consistent actions you take each day are what compound to create big results. You can't expect to wake up one morning and suddenly have a body you're proud of if you haven't been consistent in your habits. You can't expect to master a skill or make meaningful progress in your career if you don't show up every day, even when it's tough. Real progress isn't made in bursts of effort or moments of inspiration. It's made by sticking to your systems, no matter how mundane they seem. The Stoic practice of focusing on constant improvement rather than perfection is powerful because it frees us from the trap of all or nothing thinking. We've all been there. You start a new workout routine, you eat healthy for a few days, you study hard for a week, and then, when things don't go perfectly, you tell yourself you've failed. But what if you reframed that thinking? What if you recognized that failure doesn't come from falling short occasionally? It comes from quitting. Discipline doesn't require perfection. It requires you to keep showing up. If you slip up, fine. Get back on track the next day. If you miss a workout, don't write off your entire fitness journey. Just make sure to show up the next day and keep going. Consistency is what creates momentum, and momentum is what ultimately gets you to your goal. It's the consistent application of effort, even in small doses, that separates the disciplined from the undisciplined. So, how do we make consistency work for us? It starts with creating systems that don't rely on bursts of effort or huge, overwhelming goals. Think about your habits, not in terms of big wins, but in terms of small, sustainable actions that you can do every day. If you want to read more, don't set a goal of reading 100 pages a day. Start by reading just a few pages every day. If you want to work out more, don't commit to a rigorous 2-hour workout every day. Start with a 20-minute walk or some simple bodyweight exercises. These small actions might seem insignificant at first, but over time, they'll add up. They'll build momentum, and that momentum will carry you toward bigger accomplishments. The magic happens when you stop focusing on perfection and start focusing on consistency. You'll begin to realize that showing up every day, no matter how small the action, is what truly makes a difference. But let's be real, consistency isn't always glamorous. There are days when you won't feel motivated, when the couch looks more inviting than the gym, when the temptation to eat junk food will feel too strong to resist. It's on those days that your commitment to consistency will be tested. But this is where you can really start to build the discipline that lasts. In those moments, it's not about pushing yourself to perfection, it's about making sure you don't quit. If you can make consistency a habit, even when you don't feel like it, you'll begin to see results. And those results, while small at first, will begin to compound. Each day you show up is a step forward, no matter how small that step might feel. The key here is to make consistency a non-negotiable part of your life. Instead of waiting for motivation to hit you, you set up systems that make it easy to show up every day. If your goal is to eat healthier, stop asking yourself if you feel like eating vegetables. Have them prepped and ready to go. If your goal is to work out, stop asking yourself if you feel like going to the gym. Schedule your workouts just like you would a meeting. Make them non-negotiable. The more you set up your life to make consistency the default option, the less you have to rely on motivation or willpower. This is where discipline truly thrives. It's not about pushing yourself to the brink every day. It's about making the right choices as automatic as possible so you can stay on course no matter how you feel. As you begin to see the benefits of consistency, you'll notice that your habits become more ingrained in your life. The things you once had to force yourself to do will begin to feel natural. This is when discipline stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like second nature. You've built a system that works for you. You've removed the friction that made it difficult to show up every day. And now, even on the days when motivation is low, you're still taking action because consistency has become a habit. When you commit to showing up every day, even on the hardest days, you build trust in yourself. You show yourself that you can rely on your own actions, and this trust is what strengthens your discipline over time. If you've ever struggled with the ups and downs of motivation, remember this: discipline doesn't rely on motivation, it relies on consistency. Motivation will come and go, but if you're committed to showing up, you'll continue to make progress, even on the days when you don't feel like it. As you build this muscle of consistency, you'll find that discipline becomes easier and progress becomes inevitable. The key is to stop aiming for perfection and to start aiming for consistency. When you show up every day, even if it's just for a few minutes, you'll look back and see how far you've come. It's the small, consistent actions that make the biggest impact. So, commit to consistency and let the magic of small wins compound over time. Consistency doesn't require you to be perfect. It just requires you to keep going, even when it feels tough. It's the daily actions that build your character, your discipline, and your ability to achieve your goals. When you embrace this mindset, you stop worrying about being perfect and you start focusing on showing up. And that's when you'll discover that true discipline isn't about doing it perfectly every time. It's about committing to progress, day in and day out. Every time you show up, you're one step closer to mastery. Keep going, and before you know it, you'll have built the discipline you've always wanted. The secret to discipline is consistency, and consistency is the key to mastery. Remember, discipline isn't about perfection. It's about showing up day after day and letting those small, consistent actions build the life you want. The path to mastery is a series of steps, no matter how small, taken with intention. If you commit to consistency, you'll realize that discipline isn't a struggle, but a way of life. Keep moving forward, trust the process, and let your progress speak for itself. If you're ready to continue this journey of growth and self-mastery, check out one of the videos on the screen. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal. Keep showing up, and remember, the best version of you is already on the way.